Good afternoon. My name is Michael, and I'm going to be hanging out with you for the next 45 minutes or so. First things first, we need to know that you can hear the dulcet tones of my golden voice. Hey, Bob, welcome. And it's such a great privilege to be here with you. I promise not to waste your time. I do, however, want to open your minds to some things that not a lot of people are talking about lately. And some of it's going to sound crazy. They don't like me. Uh, Sometimes people in my own staff, they don't want me, excuse me, to talk about these things with you guys. They say it's very confusing. Not everybody's going to believe it. A couple people called you crazy afterwards last time. And if it's all right with you, I'd like to um, just go through some really weird stuff, if that's okay, in this webinar today. Is anyone not okay with weird stuff as it relates to timing the market and knowing maybe when something was going to happen in the future? Okay. I'm going to do some ridiculous things first and lead you into what we've discovered and now used for close to, gosh, almost 18 years. And essentially, we're kind of walking in the footsteps of men like, whoops, let me write that better. Somebody named William Delbert Gann. And simultaneously, Gann and another really famous person lived at the exact same time, and were sort of saying the exact same things about human behavior. Both Gann and Tesla were describing the phenomenon they were each studying as vibration. They were studying vibration. Simultaneously, there was another weirdo named Einstein who was also chiming in about how the universe works and how everything is built. And everyone, about 120, 30 years ago, were all sort of citing this idea of vibration as something we could study and was somehow the building block of how humanity behaved, how energy behaved, how all of it seemed to move. And there are hints of this. Ecclesiastes, everything that has happened will happen again. If you come at it from a religious perspective, you can all the way back in Ecclesiastes, King Solomon says, what has been will be again, what has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. And it alludes to this: you get to a point and you're right back where you start. You get to a point and you're right back where you start. You get out of the Middle East, you're right back in the Middle East. Right? And then the further down you go metaphysically, for everything there is a season, right? And now you sort of have vibration in metaphysical form: a time to rend, a time to sow, a time to be quiet, a time to speak, a time to love, a time to hate. There's this observation that there are peaks and valleys, and peaks and valleys. And in the end, if you get too frustrated, he basically says, everybody should eat and drink and enjoy the hard work, the fruits of the hard work that they put in. Basically, try not to think too hard about the fact that you start out here, you end up here, you end up back there. And then right about that time, you think you're done with down here, you're up here again, and you have war and peace, and war and peace, and war and peace. So along come these guys, and Tesla is a profoundly religious man, studies the Bible in his written works, goes on to say uh, many times that if you searched hard enough, everything you needed to know to be profitable was in there, as the character of one of his books. I think it's Tunnels Through the Air, Tunnel Through the Air. And around the same time that Einstein is saying what Gann is saying, Tesla, who arguably affected modern society more than anyone, creates what's known the alternating current generator. The alternating current generator, which basically produces AC power. And you're going from positive to negative 120 volts in the United States, 220 in Europe, over and over again. And he gets in bed with Westinghouse, who takes all of his patents. He dies penniless, but they're able to get the electricity from Niagara Falls all the way back to New York City using transformers along the way because of the concepts of how energy oscillates. And he loses, Thomas Edison loses out to Nikola Tesla in the great energy propagation race, and no one uses DC in their home. Everyone uses AC. Okay. And then concurrent with that, you got this guy. And I'm trying to find concerning matter, we have all been wrong. What we have called matter is energy whose vibration has been so lowered as to be perceptible to the senses. There is no matter. And now, even at a quantum level, we have this understanding that every particle is also a wave, and that matter and energy move back and forth between each other. So it doesn't come as a surprise where the guy who's studying markets sort of leans into this, and he decides that the law of vibration is what allows him to predict when markets will move and in what direction. And he says after all the after all of his researches of the known sciences, he's concluded that the law of vibration is responsible for every market move up and down. And I'm paraphrasing here if you'll give me a little bit of rope. So for me, it took a very long time to understand what that meant, because none of these guys were particularly brilliant at teaching. But I have a mechanical engineering background. I did study harmonic motion and vibration, and I sort of stared at it a long time before I was able to come out with any conclusive theories about markets. And what I started to understand that's going to allow us to basically talk about how we're looking at these charts like the E-mini S&P, and several days after we post when we're expecting these moves to occur, seeing those moves actually occur. I wanted to tell you a little bit about why I think these moves occur when they occur. I can trust the outcome of it better. And it all comes back down to this idea of vibration. This is the part where it's going to be a little weird. But if you'll stay with me, I promise you'll leave here with a little bit more knowledge than you had when you came. I don't read from a marketing script. There's nothing here that I'm reading from. I don't have ChatGPT up on the screen. I'm happy to turn the camera on if you want to look around the office. This is all memorized. I know it in my core. If you wake me up at 2 in the morning today or tomorrow, I can recite it from memory. It's in my core. And what I started to realize was if energy is vibration and matter is vibration, and all of these things are moving at a wavelength or a frequency even that is knowable, then it stands to reason that human beings who are made of matter and who are comprised of energy should be equally subject to these physical laws. And I want to start out by showing you a graph. And I need somebody to kind of answer along with me when I ask questions at this point. Otherwise, I tend to get lost. And so, Bob, I'm going to pick on you because you said we can be crazy together. Bob, what will you say generally happens when we get near one of the white signals on the chart? Most recently, this is a daily bar chart for the E-mini S&P. What would you say happens most of the time when we get near a white signal since March of this year? Goes up, goes down, yeah, go long, okay? And we can make an argument too that in a downtrend, it kind of consolidates for a while, right? It doesn't really go up or down, it just kind of wiggle waggles for a while. Now, vice versa, when we get to the blue signals, and I'll show you another version of this chart in a second. Again, more often than not, more than 50-50 or no, would you say that the markets tend to go down, go sideways, or there's no correlation whatsoever? Go down. Okay. Now, the first thing I want you to see on the chart in relation to energy and as these men understood it is that there's a frequency to these points. Do you notice, guys, that the gap is about the same? The distance is almost the same as we go from signal to signal. Now, I'm going to superimpose something here on top of this chart. And so if all of these guys, Bob, are saying that vibration is what determines how markets move, how humanity moves, how matter moves, is it safe to say that we have a pretty good correlation as it relates to vibration? There seems to be a cycle with a known period in between the peaks and troughs. Is that a fair statement? Something is repeating over and over and over again. And so, Bob, if we know the period, we can project that into the future, right? And vice versa down here. So it stands to reason that if we go back 10 years on this chart, and we will, I'll show you how it works over time, that all of these signals, if we knew the frequency way back when, were predictable. Now, here's what's bananas about this chart and why I get in trouble when I show it. Here's what's bananas about this chart and why I get in trouble when I show it. I'm going to literally write on the screen where these signals are coming from and tell you where to go to get them. And I'm going to make the text a little bit bigger. And some of you have been around long enough to know my spiel and my shtick with this, but it's important, I think, it's very important to understand this at a very basic level. So, Bob, everywhere you see a white dot on this chart, is a full moon. Matter of fact, let's make it even neater by doing that. And I'll fix it one more time. Now I want you to absorb that, because we're tracking an energy cycle now. And I'm not going to leave this chart too quickly because there's some pretty cool stuff. Now, over here, and this applies to crypto, this applies to gold, this applies to oil, this applies to NVIDIA. It applies to anything that is a market, which is a representation of human behavior. Okay, now first let's kind of sit with it, because at this point I usually lose about half of the people. Half of the people watching the webinar are calling their pastor to see if it's okay for me to say the things I'm saying to them, and will they still get free muffins on Sunday, because this feels like astrology, and it's not. This is less Hare Krishna and more Neil deGrasse Tyson, I promise you. So what we've discovered is that humanity on our little planet is like a wireless phone charger. And we have this tremendous power source several billion miles away. And Bill, Bob, Tom, some of that energy is reflected off of this sphere. Does that make sense? Some of that energy is being reflected off of that sphere back onto all of us. Stay with me, I promise. There's a conclusion to this. And so, in the same way, you can hold your phone closer to a wireless phone charger. And when you do, there's something called inductive coupling. And the magnets in the phone, the wire coils interact with the magnetic field of the wireless charger, and your phone charge starts to go up. And Bob, what happens when you pull the phone further away from the phone charger? The phone has no external source of power and the battery starts to drain. Yeah. Not only does it stop charging, it drains. And so, without spending too much time on it, I'll ask you one more anecdotal question. How many of you have stood next to somebody and you've said something to the effect of later on, that person sucked the life out of me? Being around Judy sucks the life out of me. Sorry, Judy. Humans, because of the several miles of nerves we have in us, are essentially what the Wachowski brothers said in The Matrix. We're a battery. We exert a magnetic field. And you can be around somebody who sucks the energy right out of you. When you're at a lower state and they're at a lower state and you're at a higher state, it can pull energy away. And then how many of you have been around somebody where you came home and you were just like, I feel like I can start a small business tomorrow, right? They energize you. We use phrases like extroverted and introverted to sort of try to get around it. So what we've uncovered here is there's this cycle where everyone on Earth gets jazzed up and is charged up until right here. And Bob, can you see? Even at the new moon, how the market stops going up and goes into a sideways consolidation pattern, as though there are people selling into it right here, right? They're pouring water on a hot fire. Kind of cool. Now, there's one signal on here that makes more sense when you see this book, which I think I gave a link to in the GoTo webinar. If not, you can tell me at the end of the webinar, I'll send you a copy. what we start to study over time, when you look at energy from a physicist perspective and less from a guru or hippy dippy perspective, things start to emerge. And I started noting what patterns were repeating over and over again. And using, again, nothing but this pattern from a book I wrote a long time ago, I think 2016. I noticed that when you arrive at one of these buying signals, in this case, the full moon, and the signal is a brand new structural high in relation to the previous swing high, either that signal, the candle before, or immediately afterwards, whichever one of those three candles in this group surrounding a buying predictive signal, the market tends to reverse and go down. And Bob, can you see here this full moon right around June? The candle before it is a brand new high in relation to the prior swing. And then the candle of the full moon is a brand new high. The third candle isn't. Now, again, just so you know, I'm not jerking your gherkin here. The examples in this book are from 2016, and the webinars have been recorded since at least 10 years ago. So I'm not making this up from scratch. And we've noticed that when this happens, you get big sell-off moves. And so now in the accounting of it all, I want you to see that if we look for qualifying signals, we can say that this in essence is explainable when we come across it. And it ends up being a trend reversal for a while. So when we approach time signals in energy cycles with the mind of physicists like Tesla and Einstein, market analysts like Gann, things begin to emerge which are not so scary. And it feels as though we have an edge, almost as though we have a friend who's come to a hypnosis party, right? Here's a great suggestion. And you get a bunch of people over, and there's a hypnotist there, and he tells your wife, whenever Bob says the word chicken cutlet, you're going to reach in your wallet and give him $1 or the lowest denomination of any money you have. $1, $5, $20, $100, whatever you've got. And he proceeds to hypnotize your spouse, your close friend, whoever it is. And now when the guy turns around and he says, on the count of 3, wake. Bob, you know something about your spouse that they don't know. You have a predictable vulnerability instilled in them, right? And if you say, you know what I would like for dinner tonight? What's that, sweetie? I would like chicken cutlets. And she doesn't realize that there's something inside of her compelling her to go over to her purse or her wallet, reach in and grab a dollar bill and give it to you. It's totally subconscious. And that's what's happening here. Because now we can go to a website and I can literally put in what year it is, and it'll give me the signals for the rest of 2026. And so, Bob, I can look at the signals and see, are they pattern 5s or 4s? And if not, they're normal ups and downs, and trade accordingly. This is chicken cutlet map. This is a map of chicken cutlets, right? It's kind of weird. But before I told you what it was, you looked at it and said, that's kind of cool. A second ago, everyone was on my side until I said full moon, new moon. And now when I start to compress the signals up, this has been happening for a very, very, very long time. And it's something you don't have to take my word for. You can go look yourself. Okay. Any questions about that? It's very weird. Yes, it is very, very weird. And here's the thing. People know this. People know this, and they're not sharing. There's a pattern 7, there's a pattern 5 right there. Here is a pattern 7. And this is from 2023, 3 years ago. Please go look on your own. Okay, that was really weird. However, necessary, because no one teaches you this. They want you to think that markets are random and that anything can happen at any time. They want you to think you're the person with the chicken cutlet deformity in your brain. Do you understand? You're the person with the subconscious suggestions. Candle number 3 on this signal is crude right now. That's a pattern 5. This is a pattern 5 in crude. Everything else is normal. Crude futures right now. What else can we look at? We can look at gold futures. Do the same thing. Pick something, and it's the same thing over and over and over again. There's NVIDIA. NVIDIA, have you met Lydia? NVIDIA, the tattooed lady. Wait a minute, I thought NVIDIA goes up because of Jensen Huang and because of the new processors they march out and the AI revolution and humanoid robots and the little Disney robot that was so cute and took a picture and danced at the carnival. No. Full moon, new moon, full moon, new moon, full moon, new moon. Put the signals on the charts yourself. I'm not making it up. So what we started doing is saying, well, how does that work intraday? Because this is big swing stuff. How does that work intraday? If we're looking at the E-mini S&P, and if markets really are cycles that are occurring over and over again, we should be able to find them if we go looking for them. So let's load up 30 days of an E-mini S&P chart, get rid of my trades here. And so now let's look at this in terms of time with the understanding that chicken cutlet might be there. Let's start the line at 6 o'clock, and we'll go from 6 o'clock to 4 o'clock. So Bob, there's one day. There's one day. And now we'll go look yesterday at 6 o'clock and 4 o'clock. We'll bracket that one off. Can you see this spike right here, Bob, at 11:03? 11:03, 11:06. High a day, right? Now, if you're thinking about it like a normal trader, tomorrow, which is today, you'd be watching candle patterns, you'd be watching volume, you'd be watching reversal bars, you'd be watching fair value gaps, which I still don't understand, market pivots, VWAPs, everything under the sun that the 16-year-old on YouTube is telling us to follow along with. If you're thinking of the world like this, I'm looking at this signal through a different lens. I'm saying maybe that's evidence of a cycle. 1103, 1106, whatever it is. And so, Bob, what are we thinking about tomorrow if this is today? Maybe tomorrow at what? 1103, 1106, there's going to be another drop. Maybe. Maybe nothing is random. Maybe King Solomon was right and Tesla was right and Einstein was right. Gann was right. And so now we scoot over forward and I go looking right here. There's 1103 and 1106. Wait a minute. That's weird. More weirdness. How is this happening? What if I wait for that wave tomorrow? Right? And now we're looking through the lens of time one more time. So what could you study? What could you use to confirm that it's happening? You could use moving average crossovers. You could use trend line breaks. You can use candle pattern reversals. Watching for reversals near those times, right? You could confirm. Here, ready? We'll do it again. Once I show it to people, they can't unsee it. See that big bull run that started? 818, 830. Okay, stay with me. Out of nowhere, a bunch of energy, popcorn started popping. There it is. Why did what happened yesterday affect what happened today? And Bob, what happened? What would happen if this was a buy time we were watching for, and when we arrived at it today, it was a brand new high? What if we got to 836 today and it was the high candle of the move? Well, we have a guide for that, right? We have a guide for that. And as long as we know the inflection points, we can even know when that time is about to maybe go backwards. Not based on hunches or talking heads on CNBC or Jim Cramer or something Elon Musk tweeted, based on physics. And so what our software does is it looks at the problem kind of like the way a large learning model did. And it says, I'm going to go back and study all the times lately that these moves are occurring. I'm going to go back and study all the times that these moves are occurring. And I'm going to notice when they are occurring. And I'm going to build a database of when the moves are occurring. And I want to see if Solomon was right and Gann was right and Tesla was right. And so a way to prove that beyond what I've already shown you, the one last bar that really blows people's minds. And I've been doing this for nearly 20 years. I put a link in there. Before the webinar, before I sit here and show everybody these wonderful things, we dare people to come because of this webpage right here. TachEon Warp forecasts. Thursday, August 20th, market forecasts. E-mini S&P, I'm going to look at the smallest time frame. 4 days ago, this was published. This existed 4 days ago, exactly how you're seeing it. No changes over the course of 4 days. And so, Bob, what were we expecting to have happen at these times today, based on the analysis from 4 days ago of what had been happening recently on Thursdays? That's right. Full moon, positive energy, buying opportunities, with the possibility that one of these may also be a 5 and go backwards if we apply the definition. Now, conversely, all of these signals were the result of that large scale data analysis. And the program was saying, hey, I've studied these times and they tend to push down on a 3-minute time frame over the last several thousand bars of analysis. I did find a vibrational pattern. It was there. If there were no patterns, none of these lines would appear. Can I just say that? If there were no patterns in the historical data, the code would give me a blank screen. You'll see there are windows where there's nothing. It's static. But where there were, they appear. That's important to memorize and understand. If there were no patterns in the historical data, the algorithm would show us nothing. In the same way, the very same way, if we were in a submarine, hunt for Red October, and we sent out a radar ping, if there's nothing there, that ping would go on forever. But if there was an incoming missile, that ping would bounce back and someone would shout, evasive maneuvers. And in that very real sense, this chart is telling us where those cycles existed. There's no guarantee it's going to be real. It's going to happen. But some pretty cool stuff when we get to the webinar begins to emerge. Here are the signals for today's E-mini S&P using those signals from 2 days ago. Now I'm going to draw some things that might freak you out, but I've already given you a kind of manual analysis, right, of how this is working. So 1027, 3 days ago, forgive me, I misspoke. 3 people were watching along. 112 Eastern, 218 Eastern, 9:33, 10:51, 11:27, 12:09, 139, this retracement here, 139. Bob, what's going on? What's happening? How is this real? There are no time frames that are better analytically than any other time frame. Ron asked a good question. He said, what time frame is better? And I always get that question. I should have addressed it earlier. So to answer that, what I'll do is we'll go to the biggest extremes. And someone asked me to do that this morning. and I didn't. This is the same software, Bob, on a daily time frame. Does it look kind of exactly like it did a minute ago on the 3-minute time frame run in terms of the majority, not all of them? Yes. Blue goes down, white goes up sometimes. Now, I can go out to the weekly time frame. Same principle emerges. What is uniform across everything? Number one, these times are on the right. They never change. They never increase or decrease in value. They don't shift a day or two to the left or the right. There is always a vertical line here that's telling us where we are in time now. It's telling us what the predictions were, the analysis was when we were back here. That never optimizes, changes, updates, or deletes itself. So it's creating a track record. When people say, well, why should I care about the next signal? Because of what happened across the past signals. There's a statistical basis for us to trust these things. And so, but we're seeing that same thing happening, right? Big moves and reversals are occurring, not all the time, but more than half the time there. And so as we begin to drop down, the idea of fractal analysis is kicking in. And by that, I mean, Bob, Ron, if I ask this question, see if it makes sense in time. Does a Fibonacci retracement from a low to high work better on a daily chart or a 1-minute chart? Does a Fibonacci retracement work better on a daily chart or a 1-minute chart? The principle, the right answer is a fib can be applied to both charts. You can look at a 62, a 38, a 50, a 121 on a 1-minute chart and a daily chart. It's equally applicable. It is equally applicable. Words are hard. So the answer to your question, as I've understood it, is the time frame that you are most comfortable with is the one you should apply the tool to. If you prefer a higher time frame, look what happens on the 60-minute signals. These don't repaint. What was the signal for today? 4 o'clock to today, there's that consolidation pattern, and we drop. Where are the highs coming in at 11 o'clock, at 8 o'clock, at 6 o'clock, at 10 o'clock? Where are the lows coming in at 3 o'clock, at 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 1 in the morning, and 7 at night? What do we expect to happen here at 7 o'clock tonight in about 2 hours from now? If you were short from 11 o'clock, Bob, is it reasonable on a 1-hour time frame to look at 7 o'clock as a potential exit or a place to trail your stop? Yeah, but the same affectations are applicable here. There are the times in the future. How many of them are there? Quite a few. What do I mean by that? Look, these times never change, disappear, repaint, and I have them for how far in the future? Till September 3rd. The song and the lyrics are here in the same way they were on our 3-minute chart, which begs the question, does free will exist, or are we all predestined because of these energy cycles to follow these rules? And so if we go down to a 1-minute time frame, it's like applying a fib to a 1 minute versus a 5 minute chart versus a 1 hour chart. It's just a nook and cranny inside of a nook and cranny inside of a nook and cranny. That's the definition of fractal. And we know that's how nature operates. So what I do is I trade with the trend. When the moving average is down, and I won't go down this hole with you guys today, but Bob, I'm looking for shorts at 1209. I'm looking for longs at 1244. I'm looking for shorts at 105. I'm looking for shorts at 136. I'm looking for shorts at 152. I'm looking for shorts at 206. 218 is a stop out. 301 is a stop out. 326 is a winner. Even after the close, 405 gets me into profit. So Bob, when the moving average is dropping, I know from 20 years of experience with traders that trend traders win more often than not in every category of approach. Anywhere from 40 to 50% or higher win rate with a profit factor of 1.5 to 2 or more. So psychologically, I'm in a better position if I know when I'm going to be interacting with the market. What am I doing at 243? If I'm not a trend trader, I'm not doing anything. What am I doing at 217 and 211 and 143? I'm not doing anything. I'm exiting and going away, refreshing my mind. So the software gives you parts of your life back. Yes. How would that work for options? Options are just the same. Options are longs and shorts without stops. Lionel, right? Is that a fair statement? Options are shorts and longs without stops. Could you have placed calls and puts on Tesla today on a 1 minute time frame? And all I did was change the instrument, right, Lionel? I didn't change any settings. Does Tesla look like it's random, like Elon's buddies are playing people? The Saudi wealth fund is manipulating the hearts and minds of Americans. TSLA, 1 minute chart. Well, I thought it was about the robo-taxi announcement and they spotted one of the taxis in Atlanta. But then my brother-in-law said that they're using an N-type PV assembly on the solar panels, which is less efficient when they should be using a P352. Boop, 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 boop. You mean when he tweets stuff out and it affects the market? He's pushing people and saying chicken cutlet to them in real time. But I thought he was a genius. I thought he was a self-made millionaire. No, he knows chicken cutlet. Puts and calls. You want to do your butterflies and your iron condors and all that stuff? Sure. I have a guy that works for me. He's in sales here and he uses the lunar phases for options. Does really good. But this is Tesla on a 1 minute chart. And Lionel, if we circle back to what Ron was asking, which time frame is the better one, right? We can go out to a daily chart for Tesla if I don't crash my computer. Gets a little weird with NinjaTrader after the market closes. It kind of needs the market open to get the data. But you get the point. Let me close this out. There we go. Any questions about that? And then we'll wrap up here. So we already know the cycles for tomorrow. Not because of my guru prowess, but because of math, because of physics, because of that submarine example. We already have these times here for tomorrow. We already have these times here for tomorrow. Why should we care? Because of what happened at these times today. Because chicken cutlet is a real thing. And after 20 years of doing this, I promise you, it's always the same result every week, week after week after week, 50 webinars a year, almost 20 years. That's got almost 1,000 webinars now. I am James Taylor singing Fire and Rain on Thursdays. Fire and rain. Okay. And that's all I got. But when you leave here, I want you to remember what I showed you. That we looked at some weird stuff. And if all you do, Lionel, if all you do, Bala, Ron, Bob, is go out with a pencil and a piece of paper and you stare at the sky and you say, is it as full as it can be? Is there nothing there? And you look for prior swing highs and you see that one diagram that I gave you. And you study it. New moon, new moon, new moon, new moon, new moon. And don't be surprised when you see the stop runs occur right there at those times. Don't be surprised when you see the stop runs right at those times. Same thing. It can't get any brighter. I think tonight was the night. Watch what happens. Because this is the foundation of what Gann observed. This is the foundation of what Einstein understood. This is the ground floor basement of Tesla's innovations. And I believe it's what the institutions use to manipulate the hearts and minds of retail traders, countries full of citizens, do what they want when they want. They know when you're most vulnerable to impressions and optimistic. They know when you're most fearful and paranoid. And they leverage that against us. That's all I got. If you want to learn more about this, you can visit us at backtothefuturetrading.com, where I highly encourage you to go to where it says product demonstration. But first, if you're interested more in the tools, how much they cost, and what's available for NinjaTrader versus TradingView, go on in there and click Learn More. I highly recommend you sign up for a product demonstration. That guy I told you about who's trading options with these signals would love to meet with you and show you what he's doing. You got to let him know ahead of time so we can set up his charts with relevant examples. And you're going to get forecasts for the market to play with. You're going to get all this neat stuff. And maybe one day you will be in a Photoshop-like picture with a beautiful blue and gray background around you. You can also go here and read the testimonials of customers who've been using the software before us here today, and get a sense on Trustpilot if you want to visit there to see what people's experiences generally are. Those customers are actual customers. Nobody on there on Trustpilot who's left a review is financially incentivized by us to leave a review. We let people say what they want to say and use Trustpilot as a way to get better if somebody says we're not doing something good enough. And if you need to reach out and contact us about something, please do. We're happy to answer any questions that you've got. Any questions before I go here today? I told you it was going to be weird. By the way, NVIDIA's next buy point is 6 days and 23 hours from now on a daily chart. Yeah, I love you guys too. May the wind be at your back. May the sun shine on your face. May the mountains lay low before you and the valleys rise up to meet you on your journey. I wish you peace. I wish you health, joy, prosperity, fellowship, all the things you want for yourself. I say this every time because I believe it in my heart. I am for you. I will never lie to you. I will only ever teach you what I've learned and hopefully shorten your learning curve. I'm sure you would have figured this out on your own in due time. Maybe this can motivate you to move faster or jump the fences I had to slam into. I'm a big fan of you, and I'm very proud of all of you for learning something today. It's hard to learn anything anymore. The world moves so quickly between social media and the news and the electronic advancements. Feels like we can never stop and catch a breath or figure out what's going on. But maybe you'll at least understand now there are periods in life where you're more susceptible to wanting to buy and wanting to sell, and you have a vulnerability that explains why you're stopped out when you go long and then it goes short, and then when you're short, it goes long. At least now you have a breadcrumb to follow. I love you guys. I'm proud of you. Oh, to get the book, let me get it for you right here. Thank you for reminding me. I have a goldfish memory a la Ted Lasso. Histogram guidebook. Let's grab that and I'll send you out the link. Here we go. This is a Dropbox link, so you're going to have to download it to your desktop. David, do you got that link there? Go ahead, click on it for me so I know you got it. Whatever timing sequence you apply this to, whether it's apogee, perigee, full moon, new moon, sunspot cycle, highs or lows, this will work. Did you get it? Let me know if you got it there. All right, sweet. I'm going to leave you guys. Please take the demonstration. Paul is a super guy. You can email me if you have questions. If you want to go straight to the horse's patootie, it's Michael, Michael .Lydick, Lydick @gmail.com. That's my personal email address, or you can reach me, Michael at backtothefuturetrading.com. Where we're going, we won't need roads. See you guys later. Take care. Bye.